reminds me to turn off my phone.
Yes. Hello and welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Denver, the stream. This is a really exciting show for me. If you've been listening to me for a while, you might not know, I have been on this station, on this show for 2 years. I started the day after Christmas, 2020, auspicious day to start a show. And actually 2019, the day after Christmas. And so now I'm at the little past, right? My 2-year anniversary. Very exciting. Today's show is just going to be fun. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is join me. Go to KUHSdenver.com and watch live there. Join me on Facebook at the Dr. Elisa Show or KUHS Denver. Or I'm going to ask you to text into the studio at 720-386-0513. And you might wonder why you should bother. Well, so just to let you know, yes, it's the Dr. Elisa Show, and yes, the tagline is inspiring a renaissance of spirit. But today is really fun. I have with me an absolutely amazing guest, and I have, who's an astrologer. I'll introduce her in a sec. I have my crystal ball. We are going to be talking astrology. We're going to have a couple giveaways. My book, Dark Fire, which I talked about all last year and never actually, it didn't happen, but now it is going to be live tomorrow on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle for 99 cents. You'll be able to buy the hard copy. Also, I think on the 1st, might take a little longer to go live. And 99 cents. And if you don't have a Kindle, you can download the app for free on your cell phone or your computer, doesn't matter, and read it there. But today, we have some giveaways. I'm going to be giving away some Kindle books for people who chat with us on Facebook. And my buddy's going to be giving away some readings. And if you go, just buy the book. If you go to Amazon and you buy the Kindle and you send me an email that says, hey, bought the Kindle version, here's my Amazon, proof of whatever code, I'm going to send you a workshop on how to read a crystal ball. So that's what the show is about today. It's definitely just for the fun of it. Thank you for joining me. And I think that is probably most of my lead-in, though I want to remind you that this show is spiritually multilingual. So if I say prayer and you want to hear meditation, if we say Great Spirit or spiritual energy and you want to hear Hashem or God, use those words. Use the words that work for you, but understand that the meaning behind them, the theme, is universal. And that's what we're going for, something sort of multilingual. And we might be a bit edgy today, but that's okay, because the same way that when I teach a class, I tell my students, if you leave my class with more questions than when you walked in, more questions than answers, it was a great class. So I'm hoping we spark a renaissance of thought, of spirit, maybe a sense of new courage for you in this show. So, okay, enough about that. My guest today is this amazing astrologer who also happened to also be a dancer and a mom and a puppy mom and I'm not sure what else, but just this amazing woman who always inspires me. I'm going to tell you that her take and her understanding of astrology is so personal and so human. So I don't know if this has happened to you. I live in a world of astrologers, and sometimes I listen to some of them talk, and I'm still not sure how to apply what they said to me, right? I'm still wondering, was this something positive? Like, what do I do with this? And Jennifer's always clear. She understands people, and she understands human need, and links that to this profound wisdom around astrology. So Jennifer, do you like Jennifer Lakshmi Dove or Jennifer Dove? How do you like it? Oh, we lost your sound. You're muted. There you go. Okay, try again.
Jennifer Dove is the easiest for everybody, but Lakshmi is my middle name.
Okay, so Jennifer, And before we even get started, tell people how to find you. Like they can go to what, jenniferdove.com, is that it?
Yes, yeah, my website is jenniferdove.com, and you can read out my background in astrology and other things, and schedule readings there if you like. You can also find me on onetolisten.com, where I do psychic intuitive readings.
Awesome. So you're all going to want to know how to find her, so that's why we did that first. So Jennifer, talk to me about this journey of yours. You were a dancer, and I mean you've done so much, and now you're this amazing life coach, and intuitive astrologer. Just talk to me about your journey.
First of all, thank you so much for that great intro, and I also want to just say real quick, congratulations on your 2-year anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Yeah,
so fun.
exciting.
Yeah. So exciting.
So, my journey to astrology, or just
where you are.
My life, Lisa.
Where are you in your life right now? How this has been, because I look at your past, and what I see is this similar to mine, an eclectic, circuitous, journey that with no straight lines involved. And
True.
What do you find are the elements that you now look back and think, this is how I was guided here. This is why this works now.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love about astrology, and why I spend so much of my work life supporting people with astrology, is that you really do learn a compassion for yourself, and suddenly all the paths you've taken throughout your life are clear. Like, there's no mistakes. What didn't make sense when you were younger makes sense. So I finally accept that I am a multi-dimensional creative person. I did not end up having a corporate job like my parents might have thought, and I also didn't end up being a full-time housewife, which is probably because they are of a different generation.
Right.
So I had to really, I started out as a writer. I'm still writing. I'm a poet, published poet, and working on a novel.
Awesome.
Write essays too on astrology. And I got into astrology as very young. Reading the paper, I can remember sitting at my grandparents' table in Florida, and wondering why, if I'm an Aries, like, why does the horoscope never, ever, ever make sense to me? It does never apply to me. And what I've learned is that we are a composite of all of the planetary placements in our chart. It's a circle. There's 360 degrees, 12 signs, and everyone's got planets, asteroids, in different places. So the sun, moon, and rising signs are what really gives us a really good picture of our personality and what makes us who we are. So I'm an Aries sun. But I'm a Pisces moon. I have a lot of Piscean energy in my chart, which is why I never related to the Aries. I can be very direct. Aries begins the spring. It's a cardinal sign, meaning it's a starter, self-starter. I can do that, but I'm a writer. I'm a creative. I'm a dreamer. And that's very Piscean. So the deepest dive into astrology happened for me about going on 6 years ago, when I was in an accident. I was in a severe accident, and while recovering from that, my marriage of 27 years started falling apart. And it was one of those, now that I understand astrology, I can point to what was happening. Saturn was on my ascendant, and Elisa, you probably know what that means.
I actually have, my chart has Saturn on the ascendant. I just live that life.
Yeah, it's like major change, like lots of change.
Absolutely.
And you kind of learn, luckily, Pisces is a mutable sign, so I learned to kind of go with the flow. But I've always had this huge desire to understand, like, why are things the way they are?
Right. Yeah.
Why, like the big why. So I needed to understand, like, how could it be that my marriage is, of almost 30 years isn't working? And I needed to have to make these big changes at a point where I thought things were kind of set, right? I had the things that I was told to have. I had an education. I had great part-time work, and a marriage to a nice guy, good guy, and 2 children, and a dog, and a house, and the whole thing. But it all blew apart. And astrology really helped save me from beating myself up about that and seeing the opportunities given to me, in terms of how I take care of my body, after that accident, and what I want to experience in relationships now that I didn't have in that long marriage.
Wow.
So that's kind of a long...
No, but I think what's fascinating about that is people see often astrology as predictive. Tuesday is going to be a good day, right?
Right.
Or 2022 is going to be a different year, which it will be. But what we often are missing is the power of 12 signs with 12 houses and all the planets and this interesting combination that is unique to an individual to explicate our life experience, to guide our life experience,
Absolutely.
to help us let go of that sense of guilt and fear.
Yeah.
Right? That
guilt, shame,
yes.
all of it, and fear, absolutely. Because if your chart says you're a risk taker, but you're have always been super afraid, or you were taught as a child, play it safe, then it's going to be hard for you to take risks until you see, oh my gosh, that's actually part of my soul's map for my life. So
right.
I agree with you completely. It brings so much, and I keep going back to that word, compassion.
Yes.
And because we can really understand, this is who I am as an authentic person, authentic individual. This is my soul's map. That's how I look at a chart, to see, okay, what is this human's soul's desire and plan for life? And of course, there is always how we're nurtured as children, and how, things that happen to us that are out of our control. But then at the same time, there's this natural map that we can use to look back with compassion and look forward with a lot of excitement and hope for what we might create.
I love that because it matches. I'm also teaching a class right now. Well, it'll start in January on Kabbalah and astrology. If you're listening and you're interested, it's through the Kabbalah Experience. Just Google Kabbalah Experience, and it's all on Zoom and it's all live. So if you're interested in that, and you can find that. But what I'm finding is this interesting dance of the Jewish calendar and astrology. So again, it's this composite. It's this amalgamation of elements that make us human, that we can discover and find a different meaning, or I guess a deeper meaning is what I would say. So what I love about what you're saying is I can understand that I'm maybe not who I was programmed by my environment to be, but I chose this life, and maybe that family, that experience is actually helping me move in some way to who I should be. Right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, because when people do, I've had a lot of traumatic events in my life, and people do have a lot of things that happen to us, but we can see that, through by taking a healing path, a conscious self-development path, we can see the gift in that and how it helped us become who we are, and on a deeper level. So I love that you're doing that combination of class. That's That's going to be real exciting for your student.
It's really fun. So if you're listening, which you better be listening, this is the Dr. Lisa Show on KUHS Denver. I have an amazing guest, Jennifer Lakshmi Dove, who is an astrologer. You can find her at jenniferdove.com. And we're going to have a little fun today. She and I are going to keep chatting, but we have some gifts because it is my 2-year anniversary. If you would like a copy of my book, Dark Fire, in Kindle, then go to Facebook, ask us some questions or comment on something, let us know you're listening, or text me something. I'm going to need your email, so it might be easier if you do this on Facebook. But to send you a book, I need your email. You can text us at 720-386-0513. And Jennifer, you're going to give a gift too in honor of my 2-year anniversary?
Yes, I'm going to give away, actually, let's do 2 20-minute, I call them Astro Minis.
Nice.
So it's like a quick little session, like an intro to what astrology is, and looking at your particular chart. And for 20 minutes, usually goes 30. But I'd love to give that to 2 of your listeners.
Awesome. So again, if you're listening, you can go to Facebook. We're going to need your contact information to do this. You could actually direct message me if you don't want to share it in Facebook. You can direct message me in Facebook. You could probably direct message Jennifer. You could also go to her site and contact her that way. And so we have some giveaways for those of you listening. So while everyone is rushing to get a giveaway, what I would love to talk about, and some of this is personal, I have to say. 2020, I lived with a lot of fear. 2021, I'm not sure I let go of it all. 2022, I would love to move forward without that sort of fear of the world, or fear of something about to happen in the world.
Yeah.
And so can we talk about just 2022 and maybe how do we do that? How do we leave behind that fear? Kabbalistically, January is a month of newness and renewal, regeneration. So we're ripe for something. So astrologically, how, or Life Mentor, use that skill, how do we do that? Let's talk about 2022 and how we walk into it.
Okay. Well, first I want to just say that we don't really know yet. Like, we've all been sort of in I'm calling it a trauma field, like a field of uncertainty, of hypervigilance, where, like what you just said, like, you don't know, like, is something else going on? And how do I be prepared for, like, the worst to happen? That's hypervigilance. It's a state of alert. It makes our nervous system sort of jacked up with adrenaline and then cortisol too. And we don't really know as a culture, as a planet, the effects of that on all of us. So it's natural to get to the end of this year and have both hope but also fear, like you're saying. And so I'm going to come back and use that C word again, compassion. Looking and seeing, like, wow, like, we've been through so much, like, since 2020 and all the way through this year too, because the pandemic didn't end, we're still in it, and yet at the same time, I'm feeling really hopeful about next year, looking at the astrology in ways that I wanted to say, like, 2021 is going to be, like, the year of freedom and awesomeness, but it really was still colored and flavored with a lot of heavy energy, with the 3 or 4, I think we had, how many planets did we have in Capricorn? Like, a lot.
We had a lot, and then at some point we had, 5 planets retrograde and Chiron and asteroid.
Yeah.
So the whole chart, the whole sky was moving backwards, it felt like.
Yes. yeah, backwards, back through the pandemic.
That's right.
And the fear,
yeah.
and the uncertainty, and how do I plan my life? When am I going to be able to see my family members and friends? So I don't know, like, how to give a prescription for how to, like, release some of that. I'm always for movement. You know, I'm of a dance and yoga background, and that's another thing that has really saved me whenever I'm moving through a challenge is movement. And it's the last thing you want to do. But, you know, for a lot of us, when we have something traumatic happen, we go into flight, fight, or freeze. And the freeze is very popular with everyone's nervous system. We don't mean to do it. But the more you can move your body, the more your nervous system will be able to be in the flow of what's happening and trust that the worst is not right around the corner. So I like movement and meditation.
Those are great points. I know that where I live through all of 2020 and 2021, I was able to get outside for very long walks or bike rides. In the summer, I'm very close to where I can lake for kayaking. And every time I would get tense, I would go back outside.
Yeah.
And do, you know, another walk. Or I mean, I got so much exercise in 2020, it was crazy. Because we weren't doing anything else. So I was long walk, kayak, bicycle, I mean, like that's what I was doing through the entire summer. And that movement helped me. And that for me is also a form of meditation.
Yes. Yeah. Walking. And I'm not talking about, I mean, for some people, going fast is good, but for most of us, a slower, contemplative kind of movement, slow motion yoga, not you know, working out hard yoga. But I actually went out on my paddleboard a lot in 2020 and 21 during, you know, the warmer months. And that movement of, like, the paddle through the water, you know, it's slow. Like, you can speed paddleboard and speed kayak if you want, but that meditative motion of like, I am moving forward. I am, you know, my life is still going forward. And I'm actually feeling in control of my ship right now, you know, out there on the boat.
I love that metaphor. I am in control of my ship. Right?
Yeah,
and
like,
I'm moving
not
with
control of anything else.
That's
right.
That's right. But I have this. So let's talk a little bit about, because 2020 and 2021 were unusual in the number of retrogrades, the number of planets in Capricorn, the number of planets that were next to each other, conjunct, right, in the sky. All of which, if you're listening, may sound like astrobabble, but we're going to make this real for you. But planets have moved. And what we know is that when the planets move, there's a universal movement and then also a personal. So one of the big things is, and this did happen already, but let's talk about, so Saturn and Jupiter are in Aquarius, where they were in Capricorn for a very long time. And now they're in Aquarius. So the difference is, for me, is that tradition versus the future. But how would you talk about that?
I love that, tradition versus the future. Yeah. Well, Capricorn is an earth sign, and it's ruled by Saturn. So Saturn was really happy to be there and and sort of disrupt a lot of our life. I mean, the good part of Saturn is it does help us create structure. So moving from a heavy earth sign, which is about work and tradition and, you know, structure and getting it right and producing, to Aquarius, which is an air sign, which is all about the innovative. I mean, you can think of it as like a breath of fresh air is now coming through the cosmos to sort of lighten up this heaviness that we've been experiencing, and help bring in new ideas. I mean, we're seeing some of that with the, vaccines. Just to talk about the virus a little bit, and different ideas I'm seeing are to be coming in too. Like, and more. I know we have less social. We have a little more like bans on social gatherings still, but I'm seeing that freeing up too, because people are going to be innovative and creative about how to get together with the people they want to get together with.
Right.
Aquarius is very much about the future and forward focused with a goal on supporting and creating the best life for the collective. You know, Capricorn is like me. I'm doing this for me.
Yes.
Where's my money? You know, where's my job? And the fear of those things that make us feel secure is really disruptive. So now it's more like, okay, this is what's going on. How can I go with this change, with this new air, this wind coming in now, and work with it instead of feeling like my life's coming apart. That's how I'm looking at it.
And somebody said to me the other day that fear is actually something we often create because we're angry and we can't express our anger. And I think that was some of 2020, 2020, although a lot of people expressed their anger and still are, but in inappropriate ways, and there's appropriate ways to express that, but that I find that fear is almost something I just learned over the last 2 years, right? Be afraid, and it harkens back to my childhood. My parents, right? I'm just so you know, Aquarius Sun, Aquarius Moon, Scorpio Rising. Don't try to keep me in a box. Don't try. I don't even know there are boxes. So I had a family that was always trying to keep me safe and help me behave appropriately, like you said, right? Like you're going to get married and have kids and, you know, not have a career and stay home and I don't know what. And it's not what I did. And so it's almost like the old fears inside of me, and maybe that's what Capricorn does, were surfacing for me to let them go. And so I'm wondering if 2022 then is our opportunity to get clear. Is what's real and what have I just sort of, what do I need to cleanse?
Yeah, what have I imagined? You know, what have I in my mind thought's the worst thing that's going to happen, and what's really happening?
Right.
And instead of being fearful, seeing the possibilities, because you know, with the Aquarius energy, we really do have to get creative and inventive and innovative about how we work, how we make money, how we live, you know, and not that it's going to be this drastic change that starts on the 1st of January, but you're going to feel that within yourself. Like because we're moving into an element of air, you're going to feel this desire to shift things up a little bit, relax a little bit about where the money's coming from, you know, and fall back on your faith. That you are taken care of, that always, there's a way.
There's a way. I know, it's one of my sayings, there's always a way.
Yes.
So, if you're listening, if you've just tuned in, let me put it that way. If you've just tuned in, this is the Dr. Lisa Show with my guest, Jennifer Lakshmi Dove. We would love some questions from you. We're both astrologers. I actually have my crystal ball with me today. And so we're here to chat with you. You can contact us by messaging us, by making a comment in Facebook. Go to the Dr. Lisa Show on Facebook or KUHS Denver on Facebook. You can also text us in the studio, 720-386-0513. And we have some giveaways. And so you could have a 20-minute session with the amazing Jennifer. You can have a free copy of Dark Fire, my novel, in Kindle. And what we will need is your contact information, and you can direct message us that, so you don't have to put it in Facebook. But we would love some questions from you. and we're going to keep chatting astrology. We can do live readings, trust me, but you got to ask us a question for us to be able to do that. So Jennifer, here's another thing. Jupiter and Neptune are both will be in Pisces and next to each other, conjunct. And that hasn't happened since like the mid-1800s.
Yes.
Right? So and you've got all that lovely Pisces energy. What is that Pisces energy going to bring in for us?
I am so excited about this.
Cool.
Oh my God. Well, what I'm feeling is we're going to be experiencing, Pisces we're talking about Capricorn Earth, Aquarius Air, Pisces is a water sign. So we're going to have some more you think of Earth is kind of a dry sign, Air is a dry sign, Pisces is watery and emotional, spiritual. I feel like we're going to have deeper connections with people. Like we're not going to be, so much has happened. We know now we don't have time for surface conversations. We don't have time for not really diving in with our partners to have deep heart connections with people. So I feel like it's going to be a year of some visionary things happening. In the tech world, I'm feeling that very strongly. Because we're seeing some of that, right? With all this AI stuff and virtual reality stuff that's in the news. I feel like that's going to be coming up. And with Pisces being here, Jupiter and Neptune together in Pisces, you also got to really watch, you got to learn how to stay with yourself and what's right for you, because Pisces is a very open sign and can kind of be like, oh wow, that sounds really cool, or that sounds really great, I'm gonna do that. But remember to always come back to what's right for you. It's like a strengthening of that the next coming year.
So is that like self-compassion? And my experience with Pisces is sometimes they forget to ask for what they need.
Oh yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Tend to put others first. And sort of kind of forget you have a body, forget you have a need for sleep, and just give. So, and that has to do with Pisces being a very permeable kind of sign, meaning it's very empathic. You feel a lot of feelings, and they're not all yours, right?
Right.
And we're all going to be in depth, kind of steeped in the flavor of that over the next year. It's also going to elevate our desire for spiritual connections too, and not necessarily in an organized religious way, although we're still going to have that, but very much in a personal connection to whatever the divine means to you.
Interesting.
Kind of a deepening of that. So yeah, watching out for your people, your listeners, overgiving. People who are listening to your show, Lisa, who are looking for guidance and know themselves to be deep feeling people, are going to feel that pull to give and help and heal other people.
Right.
And those talents are going to be heightened this coming year too. And I guess it's not a warning as much as see this as a practice to stay with yourself while you're doing those things.
That's lovely. I know that sometimes I will see something and I will get a message, a feeling, this is mine to do, and that's my message to get involved, or to donate money, or whatever it might be, sign petitions, help that individual. But often I don't get, it's this one is not mine to do. Yeah. Because I can't do everything, right, for everyone. Yeah. And that I need to have also boundaries, because even with all that Aquarius, I've got, again, my Scorpio rising, Saturn, right, on my ascendant, and
Mhm.
very, very empathic, very, very psychic. And sometimes I walk outside and I'm like, I don't know, am I afraid or is the world afraid? I can't
Yeah.
tell the difference.
Yeah.
Do you have,
Yeah.
like, what do I do about that? How do I know if it's me? Because I know you're such an empath and so intuitive. How do you know when it's you and when it's the rest of the world?
Well, it's really important to develop your individual discernment. You know, you're knowing that just because you're feeling something doesn't necessarily mean you need to act on it, and taking some time out. Because as a feeling person, and I keep using that word too, like Pisces is all about feelings and deep, expressions of emotion. Through poetry and spirituality and music and all the artistic arts. So when you're not sure, is this mine or is this the collective's? Take some time out and come back to I'm gonna give directions for meditating. Come back to your breath. Like sit quiet, listen to your breath, and you can ask, and you're going to notice, and then when you do that you'll have a body sensation, is it for a yes or a no answer, and that's individual to a person too. But yeah, the tendency, especially now, can be just to throw ourselves into helping because so many people are going through challenges and need support, and get to the point where you don't have anything left to give. So it's important to have that discernment to, and that's a thing that you develop. Is this mine to do, or is me saying a prayer over it enough to be helpful?
That that is, I think, so poignant. We often forget that just our energy, just our thoughts, can affect something. And so again, when we move to anger and frustration, which we're all frustrated. Everyone on the planet is frustrated and tired, and it's so difficult to not take it out on someone or something, right? It's because we're fearful and angry, and I think that's why I'd love to help people just move from that, like you said, to hope, and so that we can be a little more compassionate, right? And I do believe part of what you're saying too is when we're fearful, we tend to join a group because, we're a herd creature. I'm safe with everyone else, and we may not take the time to discern what that group is really about. We just start yelling the same stuff that they're yelling, and
are these my people? Is this my community really? So
is that part of Pisces? Because I know we have Pisces energy, we have Aquarius energy in 2022. Is there something else, other big movement happening that you want to talk about?
I'm so focused on Jupiter holding hands with Neptune.
Okay, we'll stay there.
Neptune is the spirituality part, and the reason I've been saying to have discernment is because Jupiter is a planet of expansion, and so it can expand our boundarylessness, when we're not taking care of ourselves. So, but let's look and see. I've made some notes here. There are, the United States is having its Pluto return.
Oh my gosh, that's huge. That's huge. So, okay, so before you say that, I know you're listening out there, and I know you're just like fascinated, and you're not chatting. And we have some giveaways. So if you would like, right now we have 2 on the table, 2 free 20-minute, they'll probably go longer, sessions with the amazing Jennifer Dove. All you've got to do is chat with us. Go into Facebook, or I guess they can find you on Facebook. That might be happening. You might find some people direct messaging you on Facebook. Or you can join us with a question here in the studio, 720-386-0513. Okay, back to Pluto, my favorite planet. We have become good buddies. There was either die or become good buddies. That was my choice.
Right. Scorpio rising, right?
Right.
Is that right? Yeah. So Pluto rules Scorpio. So you gotta make friends with your the planets that are the strongest in your chart, right?
Right. And so when a planet returns, it goes back to where it was at our birth. So for example, everyone has a Saturn return around 29 years. It takes 29 years-ish for Saturn to go around. Okay. Pluto takes 247 to 250 years to go around. So humans don't have Pluto returns, right?
It's very rare.
But countries do. So the United States is going to have a Pluto return. Can you chat about that? Because that's huge.
Well, it's huge because we're looking at the birth to date of our country, July of 1776, where Pluto was in the sky at that time in Capricorn, 27 degrees Capricorn. It's coming back again to 27 degrees Capricorn. And, that's when our country began. That's when we had the Revolutionary War. It's when, everything changed. We became our own country. We left Great Britain, and we're all here now. So we don't really know, will there be a new, Pluto invites us to transform, right, and change. So what will be the new direction that we're going to take as a country when this happens? And we've been talking about Pluto return for the last few years, because it's hanging out there in the future, and nobody really, we can kind of have some ideas about what it means, an invitation to change and transform the country, our relationship with our country. What would you say about it, Elisa?
So I've been looking at other countries that have had Pluto returns, right? England had Pluto returns, France, all these countries that are older than the United States. And I'm happy to say none of them blew up and disappeared, right? They definitely did major transformations. England, every time it had a Pluto return, shifted its relationship with the other countries around it. In its most recent Pluto return, it gave up, it walked away from the slavery and the business of selling people, human beings, and stopped being a colonial power and focused back on taking care of the people within England, which I like. Right? We know that that countries seem to grow and learn through this. So I'm feeling very, very hopeful when we put together. If we could get over being angry and fearful, maybe we could have a country that really works for the majority of the people in it, right? Does that make sense with what you think?
Yes, instead of working for corporations, working for the people, having a vision for what's really best for the country and not what's really going to bring the most money to the corporations.
Well, you said it before, Capricorn is about self, which is good. We love Capricorns. They've got great, lovely form of ambition. But when Capricorn goes dark, the dark side of Capricorn, right? It's all about me. And it's my money and my stuff. It's so funny to me. There are signs. So when we say Scorpio, everybody thinks dark. And there are other signs. We say Pisces, and everyone goes, "Oh, how lovely." And I'm like, no, they both have light and dark sides to them. Don't
yes, there's a high road and a low road.
That's right.
Yeah.
For every single sign, So I'm hopeful. Now, here's a question. So let's make Pluto personal. How do you do that for an individual? Do you look at where it is in their chart? What do you do to make this planet that is affecting nations? How do you make that personal?
I do look at where it is in a person's chart, and Pluto is so far away that it's called a generational planet, meaning that it's like Saturn and Uranus, and who else is out there? Jupiter. They move in, they affect generations. So I'm curious to see, how would I make it personal? Just to answer your question, I was going to say I'm curious to see what's going to happen after this return. for the next generation of people born in our country, but to make it personal, I look at where it is in your chart, what's next to it, and any aspects, any connections it's making with the other planets in the chart, because Pluto is about passion and power too. So it gives us our like life force in a way. Like, yes, it's birth and it's death, both. You know, it's the beginning and the ending together. So it brings that combustible kind of power, and it's also where we discover our personal power too. Like where our personal powerful strengths are. And how we, because it's a generational planet being so far from the sun, we work with others in our generation to create, you know, whatever the theme's going to be, you know, for we have the baby boomers and Gen X and, you know, millennials and on and on. So, and Pluto is one of the planets that helps create those themes.
Interesting. So I guess what I want to point out, because you started when you did your introduction about wondering why this thing you read in the newspaper never matched you. And so many people will say to me, well, astrology doesn't make sense. I read that thing. And it's so much more complicated than that, right? So I want to bring you sort of back to the reason you talk to an astrologer, our listeners would talk to an astrologer, versus I'll just get this printout and read it.
If you just want to know and have something to talk about with the people you work with, like know the the weekly flavor and have something to talk about, then you go and read your horoscope in the paper. But if you really want to know who you are and how you work and the themes of your life, and what your future looks like, you know, by looking at your past, then you want to talk to an astrologer, because we are made up of our 9 planets and where they are placed in our wheel, our horoscope chart, and then also like asteroids and fixed stars, and you know, there's so much. So it's very scientific, which is another thing I really love about it. You can point to, like, it is a fact that Pluto was here the moment you were born. You know, you can't dispute those things, which I love. So looking at it, it's not like a woo-woo thing, although like woo spirituality, I'm all about it, right?
I'm all about it.
I totally is my life, but it's so scientific. So you put that together with spirituality and spiritual growth and self-awareness work, you really can have a whole picture of who you are and who you're here to be in your contribution to the world.
So, something you said, if we want to know our future, I think I've heard some Buddhist person, I can't remember who said this, but if you want to know your future, look at your present and your past, right?
Yes.
And so astrology also helps us make different choices. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Because if you have the tendency to not have boundaries, and you can look at your chart and you can see times. You know, we can look at timing of where different places your chart was activated over your life, and you see times where, oh wow, I didn't hold my power, or I didn't hold a boundary. You can, by seeing those things, begin to make changes in shifting how you deal with those similar situations in the future.
So astrology gives us permission on some level to be the soul that we intended to be. From a Kabbalistic point of view, we've chosen our time of birth, and our soul has come here to do specific kind of tikkun, which a tikkun would be like a gift that we give the world that also serves us, right? So it could be a healing, but life isn't all about healing. So it's a way that we bring something to the earth and follow our soul's path, and which fascinates me. and then if we can make that choice. So the kind of astrology you do is to help people make those different choices, and to accept themselves for who they really are. That's sort of your mentoring, your life coaching piece, right?
Yes, definitely. Accepting, understanding, and developing compassion for who you really are. And it can bring a great relief. If you're trying to be in law school, but you are dying because it's not feeding your soul, and you're doing it for your parents, for an example. Maybe you're not meant to be a lawyer. You're meant to be a teacher. You can see things in the chart, see what your gift is that you're here to give and be.
And so I know we've mentioned Pisces and Aquarius and Scorpio, which everyone thinks is dark. I have to say that I think this year we'll see that the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, actually do well because of all that Piscean water energy, and in individual ways, right, that they'll open up. What about the earth signs? So Capricorn, Virgo, I'm missing one, Taurus, there we go. Do you think they'll get a sense of relief because we'll be moving out of Capricorn?
I feel there will be some relief for earth signs. I feel like a lot of my earth sign clients, or people who have lots of earth in their chart, have been like trying to hold on, and because they're used to like wanting to get things right and wanting things to be just so. And instead of when we have this water sign coming in, it's kind of like permission to now go with the flow of things and let go of control, which for someone who's really controlling can actually, it can be hard, right?
Yeah.
It can be hard, and it can also bring relief too at the same time. Like, oh, okay, it's not all up to me. And I can't control the whole world. I can only control my own self, my own reactions to things.
And then the fire signs, so Aries, Leo, Sagittarius.
I think the fire signs have a good year. What do you think?
I think they're going to have a good year because when you put fire in a box, right, and there's no air, they just get frustrated. You start to open up the air, and they can, or they explode. But open up the air, the box, and there's air, and fire feeds on air.
Yeah. Yes, and a lot of fire sign or fire rising signs have been feeling that frustration that you described, and also feeling kind of like dull, and like they've lost their juju, lost their energy. So having the air, Aquarius, air elements come in, and you just think of a fire when you blow on it, it lifts, right? So there's more motivation and more the ability to take action on our dreams that this Pisces energy is going to be highlighting for all of us.
And then I just have to say that I think the air signs, so Gemini and Aquarius and Libra, are just going to, I'm a double Aquarius. For me, it's like a sigh of relief. Like, oh, wow. And that I have to say that those wild ideas feel now like there's a place for them. Like, oh, like I finished a novel and I published it, right? Things can move forward.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Things can move forward even when we're having all these global challenges.
Right. So, okay, so to all my listeners, I did get a couple direct messages, DM messages, which means I've got a couple books I can give away, but I'm going to give more than 2 away. So if you direct message me on Facebook, come on, that's really pretty easy, or go to my website and find my email and go that way. I'm still going to give away some Kindle copies of Dark Fire, so please do that. Jennifer, I'm hoping people direct message you because the show plays for a while afterwards.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, really, you would love 20 minutes with this woman, just focused on your chart. So come on, how can you not want a free 20 minutes? Come on. So one last question, Jennifer, because believe it or not, we're out of time. Just very briefly, you said you're hopeful. What keeps you inspired with that sense of hope right now?
You know, what keeps me inspired is faith. I don't have, I was raised Catholic, but I don't have a traditional faith, but I'm a spiritual person. So coming back to that, whenever I get super overwhelmed, challenged, freaked out, scared, coming back to the fact that we mentioned before, that I was always taken care of, that you listeners were always taken care of, always provided for, no matter what, there's a door that will open to the next right thing. And sometimes we have to take action as well. Like, so when I'm not just laying around waiting for, the door to open, I'm taking some actions toward, what I think the next right thing is. And there's a mix of faith and then taking action too. And in small, I can be really small actions, calling someone when you have an idea, or and talking to them about it. So
going
faith,
for a walk, right?
Yeah, going for that walk.
So that dance of
connecting
faith,
with nature, moving the body.
That dance of faith and action, right?
Yes,
that is what gets us through. So, believe it or not, we're out of time. So thank you for joining me. If you missed most of this show, you'll be able to find it on the replay on Facebook. I also post it on my website, elisarobin.com. Again, you can catch Jennifer Dove at jenniferdove.com. She has a newsletter. She's a wonderful astrologer. She's a great life coach. You can catch her there. And you can buy my book on Amazon, and you can still get these gifts from us if you will direct message us or email us via our website. Thank you for joining me today. And I just, as we're closing out, Jennifer, my wish for you and my wish for my listeners is that you stay well, that you stay hopeful, and that you find a way to stay inspired.
Yes, beautiful, Elisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we are signing off.